Halloween, the night when the gates of hell are opened and all the demons and devils and witches are released. But only for 12 hours. They all have to be back by first cockcrow, and the gates are closed. Any of them that don't get back have to wander the earth as a tormented soul for a whole year. Guess where I am? I'm in Bakewell, and I'm going to tell you the story of the infamous Bakewell witches. This fantastic house here. Nobody knows where the Bakewell witches lived. Their house is gone as far as we know. But this incredible house here, Tudor house, it was here when the Bakewell witches were here in 1608. This is the old Tudor house. It's Bakewell's incredible museum. Of course it's haunted, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But just come in and have a look inside this incredible house. Waiting for me inside is Anita, the manager. Hello there.
Hi, Richard.
How are we doing? Nice to see you.
Good,
This is absolutely incredible. Gosh, how old is it?
It's over nearly 500 years old. It was built 1534 to 1537.
Gosh, and I mean, it's obvious, we know that this was not the Bakewell witch's house.
No.
And we don't know where they lived, do we?
No, we don't.
No. All we know is it's Bakewell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
I think it's a very good place to tell the story, to say the least.
Yes.
You've seen a ghost, haven't you, in here?
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where?
And I was actually standing here, where you're standing now.
Yeah.
And it was a cold, very, very cold winter's day.
As it would be.
As it would be, and I was just really, really frozen. And I looked through that doorway there. Perhaps you'll go in there in a moment.
Oh, come on then. Yes. Yes.
And there was a figure with sleeves rolled up, walking through.
Wasn't me, was it?
It wasn't you, but it was a man definitely walking through the screen there.
And it went through that screen.
Yeah.
Now, because obviously the door's here.
Yes, there is also a doorway here, and this is where I saw him.
Oh, I see.
So he walked through that screen.
He went through that?
Through that doorway.
Oh, gosh. Where does it go?
Freezing cold day. Shirt sleeves rolled up.
Oh, I see. Wow. No idea who he was.
No.
Oh, boy.
That was incredible.
Oh, that's incredible.
Hairs go up on the back of your neck, very scary.
Yeah, of course. Now, you've got witch marks.
We do.
On your doors.
Yes, we do.
Is it this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's come and have a look.
I would love to have a look. Morning. Oh, hello.
So here are the witch's marks.
Yes. These are called apotropaic marks, and it's Greek for turn away. Yes. And they used to put an inverted M or inverted V, two V's, making a W, which it wasn't a W because there's no such thing as a W in those days.
No.
But it means Virgin of Virgins.
Fantastic.
Virgin Mary.
Yes.
And it's to stop evil.
Yes.
Or witches.
Yes.
Going through the door.
That's right. And this was a tax collector's house.
Oh, talk about evil.
It was to keep this building safe, we believe. So.
Oh, I say. That is incredible. Right, can I now go upstairs and have a look round and tell the story of the Bakewell witches? Thank you ever so much. I'll see you in a bit.
You're welcome.
Now, just follow me up here. And there's a reason I'm going up here, so I can tell the story of what happened to the lodger of Mrs. Stafford. It's 1608. James I has been on the throne for 5 years. He was terrified of witches. He even wrote a book called Demonology. The witch craze had gone mad. Puritans believed that there were witches all over the country and had to be destroyed. Here in Bakewell, Mrs. Stafford was a milliner. She also lived with her sister. They had a lodger, a Scotsman. One night, the Scotsman was in bed. It was probably 3 o'clock in the morning, and he heard noises down below. He heard two women talking. He got up, and there was a crack in the ceiling, in the wooden floorboards, and he could see a light on. He looked down through the crack and he could see the Stafford sisters dressed as if they were going out at 3 o'clock in the morning. he heard them mumbling, and then he heard a rhyme, and he heard them say, "Over thick, over thin, now devil get ye to London." They vanished. The light went out, and the foolish man, for some reason, said the same rhyme. He said the same thing. "Over thick, over thin, now devil get ye to London." There was a whirlwind came through the building, and he was whisked away, and the next thing he found himself naked in a cellar in London. In the same cellar were the Stafford sisters, packing bags of clothing. When they saw him, they got him a glass of wine that was laced with something that sent him to sleep. When he woke, they were gone. Standing over him was the constable from London. They arrested him, took him to prison, and he made up this ridiculous story. He said that he was living in their house, he was a lodger, he heard them, recanted the rhyme, and ended up naked in the cellar. The constable was sent to Bakewell and searched the house and found his clothes in the bedroom. They believed him. The sisters were taken to Derby jail and put on trial for witchcraft, and they were hanged at the top of St. Peter Street in Derby on the county gallows, then taken to St. Peter's Church and buried in a single deep grave with a cage over the top of the grave, because they knew that, being witches, that they would not be at rest and would rise from the grave, and it was that cage that was there to hold them in. This was all nonsense. There was no such thing as witches. They were Wiccans, the wise ones of the village, but they were demonized, first of all by Christianity when people were pagans, and then they were demonized again by Puritans. Part of it was James I's fault. I'll tell you more about James I and his ridiculous nonsense about witches when we get to some very haunted woods. King James VI of Scotland and first of England was terrified of witchcraft. He'd been to fetch his wife from Denmark, and on the way back the fleet encountered a dreadful storm. They were all nearly drowned. When he got home, he was told that some 70 witches from Berwick-on-Tweed had bewitched the fleet and caused a stir in the North Sea. The witches were brought to trial, and some of them were actually interrogated by the king. Half of them, at least, were executed. More than 4,000 witches in Scotland were put up for trial, and at least half of them were burnt at the stake. That's 2,000 more than all of those that were tried and executed in England. He was so fascinated and interested and terrified by witches that he actually wrote a book called Demonology. This book literally opened the floodgates, and hundreds of poor women, especially, some men, but mainly women, died in the flames in Scotland and on the rope in England. I'm just leaving Bakewell after getting into the Old House Museum, and what a fantastic place to be able to do the Bakewell Witches story. I'm doing a James Corden, but it's not going to be carpool karaoke. This is going to be witchcraft karaoke, and I won't keep looking at the camera in case I have an accident. I'm on my way to Wintshill Woods to tell the incredible story of the Stapenhill witch. Her name was Alce Goodridge. She was a 60-year-old lady, just like your grandma, and she was sentenced to be hanged for witchcraft. More of that when we get to Wintshill Woods. It's 1596, Wintshill Woods near Burton-on-Trent. 60 years old Alce Goodridge, the Stapenhill witch, was wandering through the woods along the trackway, picking twigs, kindling for the fire, when a young 13-year-old boy, Thomas Darling, walked past her. As he went by, he passed wind. She was furious. She threw down the twigs and went up to him, tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned. She looked him in the eyes and she said, "Jip with mischief, fart like a bell. I shall go to heaven and you'll go to hell." The boy was terrified. He ran home, and when he got home he started having convulsions, feeling sick, vomiting. His father put him to bed and he accused Al Scudridge of bewitching him. She was arrested. She was taken to Burton-on-Trent and she was interrogated and confessed to being a witch. The rest you will hear when we get to Derby Jail, where she was taken and put on trial and sentenced to hang. Al Scudridge was taken to Burton-on-Trent and interrogated in Burton Town Hall. 5 men interrogated her. They stripped her, shaved her. They were looking for the witch's mark, which could have been a wart, a boil, an extra teat, for the devil to suckle blood from her. She was eventually sat in front of a fire, naked, with a pair of new shoes on to roast her feet, and eventually she confessed to being a witch, cavorting with the devil. She was sentenced to hang. We didn't burn witches in England, we hanged them. She was brought to Derby Jail, thrown into a dark, deep, filthy cell to await execution. The night before she was hanged, she died of jail fever, typhus, caused by the vile, disgusting, insanitary conditions in that jail. Her ghost is reputed still to this day to haunt the old original Derbyshire County Jail. In England, we didn't burn witches, we hanged them. After a law passed by Queen Elizabeth, it made witchcraft in this country a criminal offence, which meant they could be hanged. The Scots burned their witches, the Europeans burnt their witches, but here in England they died of slow strangulation at the end of a rope at the county gallows here in Derby. They were taken from the jail on a horse and cart. The cart was parked underneath the gallows, the rope round their neck. Someone hit the backside of the horse and the horse pulled away, and they went off the back of the cart, taking anything up to 1/4 of an hour, dying of slow strangulation, kicking and writhing and dancing at the end of a rope. Remember, this could have been your grandma at the end of a rope. She wasn't a witch. All she was the Wiccan, the wise one of the village. A cunning person, possibly a bit mediumistic, possibly helped people with their milk yield, laid out the dead, helped with childbirth. But in the Puritan days, when we became Protestants, people believed that anyone that had strange powers would have been a witch and would have been hanged. When the Bakewell witches were hanged in 1608 at the county gallows at the top of St Peter's Street in Derby, it took them both at least 1/4 of an hour to die. They were taken down and loaded back on the cart, taken to St Peter's churchyard and buried in a single deep grave with a cage over the top. The cage is gone, their grave's gone. Unfortunately, they widened St Peter's churchyard. But have they gone? There are reports of ghosts in St Peter's churchyard. Could it be the Bakewell witches, still wandering the earth as tormented souls? Nobody knows. This says welcome to Lichfield. Lichfield, the scene of the last burning to death of a heretic in Great Britain, here in the marketplace. You see, we didn't burn witches in England, we hanged them. But you could be burnt if they could prove you were a heretic as well. And a heretic was someone that went against the teachings of the established church. And a guy called Edward Whiteman was burnt alive here on the marketplace in front of St Mary's Church in 1612. It was at the time of King James I and Puritanism. And Whiteman came up with a ridiculous idea, amongst others, that Jesus Christ was a real person. He wasn't the Son of God, just an ordinary person. This went very much against the teachings of the church. He actually wrote a letter to King James I about this. It didn't go down well. He was arrested, taken to Lichfield Cathedral, put on trial and sentenced to be burnt alive. He was brought here to the marketplace and tied to a stake. They set fire to the faggots, the twigs and logs that were there. And when the heat started to rise and he was starting to get burnt, he didn't like the idea and he recanted. They untied him, took him down. He was quite badly burnt. And then they got a document ready for him to sign saying that all his beliefs were nonsense and he was coming back to the true teachings of the church. But when the flames had died down, he changed his mind and he wouldn't sign it. They took him back to prison, and then when his wounds, the burns, had healed, they decided to bring him back again for a second time here to the marketplace. They put him back on the stake and set fire to him, and as the flames started rising, he recanted again. But this time they wouldn't have anything of it, and the sheriff of Lichfield ordered more faggots to be thrown onto the fire, and he was burnt to death. The last heretic burnt alive in the British Isles here. And literally just at the back of the market here to this day is a plaque telling you all about what happened to poor old Edward Whiteman. Just look at this, the world famous Lichfield Cathedral. This is where Edward Whiteman was tried for heresy, and I'm going in to see if I can find the court where it happened. I'm inside Lichfield Cathedral. Behind me here, behind these doors, which are locked unfortunately, is the consistory court where Edward Whiteman had his first day of trial. 500 people turned up and more wanted to come, so they moved it from here to the Lady Chapel down here. And just round here, this incredible part of the building, is the Lady Chapel. This is where Edward Whiteman, the last day of his trial, this is where he was sentenced to be burnt alive for heresy. The last person in Great Britain to be burnt alive for heresy. Just look at this, Speaker's Corner, Lichfield. Incredible. Behind me, Lichfield Cathedral. And a quote from Samuel Johnson, who of course was born here in Lichfield. And it says here, "In order that all men may be able to speak the truth, it is necessary that all likewise should learn to hear it." And I'm here at Speaker's Corner to tell you the truth about witchcraft. There's no such thing as witches. All it was the wise one, usually a woman, in the village. They were known as the Wiccan. They were wise. The trouble is, it was probably your grandma, late 60s, early 70s. She may have had a bit of land that you wanted and she wouldn't sell it to you. Or you were a bit worried and frightened of her because she was a bit mediumistic. She talked to dead people. And so they were demonized by the church, because most people that were living in the village clung to the old faith. So the pagans clung to the old faith when we became Christian, and they had to be removed. The Catholics clung to the old faith when we became Protestant. And so one of the easiest ways of getting rid of the old people in the village that were still pagan or Catholic was to accuse them of being a witch. So they changed the name from Witchcraft to Witchcraft. Tried them and sentenced them, but they had to make them confess. Torture was illegal in England, and so we had to do it in another way. And what they used to do was tie their left thumb to their right toe, their right thumb to their left toe, and swim them. Tied a rope round their waist and threw them in the river or the pond. If they sank, they were innocent because they were accepting Christianity and baptism with water. If they rose, they were against baptism and Christianity, and they were a witch. And they dragged them out of the water and they hanged them. It was a lose-lose situation. I've been out all day witching and twitching, trying to finish the programme for, obviously for the Halloween special. And I'm just on my way home on the Duffield Road. I haven't got a story of witches, I'm afraid, down here, but I think I just must tell you that probably the most famous witchcraft story in Great Britain has to be the Pendle witches. It really is very, very famous. 9 people executed, hanged for supposed witchcraft. And the first time that a child under the age of 14 was actually brought into a trial as a witness. And because of her statement, all of her family were hanged for witchcraft. And then a few years later, she was also, would you believe, put up for trial for witchcraft, but she did get off with it. But I mean, we actually did do the Pendle witches on Most Haunted, twice actually. But of course, I think probably the most famous, the most famous, scariest Most Haunted that we ever did had to be Pendle. I was part of it, of course, but I was actually in the studio, unfortunately, as the historian, when, for want of a better word, all hell let loose when the witches, Demdike and Chattox and all the others that were executed seemed to come through through Derrick. Tables went, people fell over. I mean, the only way I could describe it was that it was like witnessing a battlefield. It was incredible. I don't know. How true was it? I can't say. I don't know because I wasn't there. But regardless of how true it was, whether those witches really came through. You see, my thoughts about witches are that they weren't evil people, as I keep saying, said it on the programme. They were just old people that were slightly different to other people. And I suppose when they were being swum in the pond and pricked with a needle to see if blood came out of the wart, stuff like that, made to sit in front of a fire with a pair of new shoes on until your feet were roasting. I would imagine that anybody like that would be extremely angry after what happened, and if they were a ghost, they would probably become quite evil, to say the least. So perhaps those witches that came through on the Most Haunted Pendle programme were really evil, and well, who knows? All I know, it was a very good programme, very entertaining. I enjoyed it, as I enjoyed all my days on Most Haunted. And well, who knows? All I want you to do now is watch more on Felix. Have a very happy Halloween. Don't have nightmares. Okay. That's it. We've arrived back at Steve's. A day's filming done. We've done Bakewell, Lichfield, Winsehill Woods near Burton-on-Trent, Derby Jail, Really enjoyed it. I've just realised, of course, talking about Pendle, that 20 years ago we actually filmed for the Ghost Tour of Great Britain, went up to Lancashire and actually did the Pendle Witches. So we're actually putting this on the end of this film, which of course you can stream on netfelix.co.uk. We're going to be out every week creating new films. So watch this space, guys. Do have a very happy Halloween. Don't have nightmares. Pendle Hill rises above the ancient hunting ground known as the Forest of Bowland. It was a place of wolves and wild boar, and it was very much a place of mystery. I'm in the village churchyard of Newchurch in Pendle, and here in 1612 took place an incredible act of persecution against the Pendle witches. There were two old ladies known as Demdike and Chattox. Many people believed that they could have been witches. This was the time of King James I, son of Mary Queen of Scots. He was fascinated and terrified by witchcraft. He, in fact, wrote a book called Demonology. And one day, the granddaughter of this lady called Demdike was walking towards the village of Colne, begging. She asked a peddler if he would give her some pins, and he refused. And she said that she was a witch and that she would put a spell on him. He collapsed on the floor in a fit. He'd probably had a stroke and was paralysed down one side. After the event, his son took him to the local magistrates, and this girl called Alison Device was brought before the magistrates, tried for witchcraft, but she also implicated Chattox and Demdike. They were also taken to Lancaster Castle and put on trial for witchcraft. The whole case became so serious that eventually 9 members of the family were imprisoned at Lancaster. They were all sentenced to hang for witchcraft. It had been stated that they'd been consorting with the devil, that they'd been possessed by evil spirits. They were plotting to blow up Lancaster Castle. They had 16 murders supposedly taken into account. We didn't burn witches in England, we hanged them. It was the Scots that usually burned witches. We burnt heretics. Luckily for Demdike, she died before her hanging, probably of jail fever at Lancaster Jail or the castle. The others were taken out on a cart to a hill about a mile away from Lancaster and publicly hanged and buried in an unmarked grave. And to this day, they say that those ghosts of those poor unfortunate women that were accused of witchcraft still haunt the area around here. This place of mystery, Pendle Hill. The tower here at Newchurch dates from around the time of the Pendle Witches, and even to this day on the tower you can see the Eye of God the villagers believed that that eye kept watch over them and protected them from the evil spirits that lurked around here in these hills. And just up the road here, a modern touch, a shop called Witch's Galore. Let's go up the road and have a look. It's a steeper hill than I thought it was going to be, but here I am outside Witch's Galore. Good evening, ladies. And well, it's absolutely full of things to do with witches, so we'll go in and have a look. Hi, now Maureen, you run Witches Galore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, what is the connection actually with New Church?
Well, Witches Galore, because we trade on the history of the Pendle witches from 1612.
Right.
That's why we're Witches Galore.
Yeah. And did anything happen actually in New Church, or is it just
Not
close?
specifically in New Church. Alice Nutter lived at Roughly Hall, which is just less than
Oh
a mile
yeah,
down
yeah. I
the
noticed there
road.
are actually 3 gravestones
That's
to the
right.
Nutter family
That's
actually
right.
here in the churchyard.
Yes, yes.
Which I found quite amazing. But I mean, so you obviously have an awful lot of visitors
we
that
do.
come and visit and buy.
Anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Every day brings overseas people. If you look on the front of the counter here at this chart,
Yeah.
we collect the word for witch in whatever language, and I think there are some 60 odd different languages there.
Really?
People that have come
Because
here.
Wicca is actually, it's a Saxon word, is that
Yes,
right?
yeah.
For wise one?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
I thought so,
You've
yeah.
done your homework.
Just a bit, yeah. But any ghost stories?
Well, yes, I do. Strangely enough, I don't believe in ghosts and
Right.
go bump in the night.
Yeah.
Right. We came to this property. We live over the shop here.
Yeah.
Now the property is 2 handloom weavers' cottages made into one, so it's pretty old, about 1750.
Well, yeah.
1760
Good pedigree
property.
then. Yeah.
And when we came here, my husband and I, with 4 teenage children at that point. So Mum used to make the dinner in the evening after the shop was closed, and everybody would disappear. I'd be left with the washing up, and the feeling was, hello, there's somebody there, there's somebody around. No, there isn't.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Just that sort of feeling, not a threatening
Oh no.
feeling,
No.
quite a sort of pleasant, benign sort of feel. And eventually I came to feel that there was a woman there, although I never physically saw anyone.
No. You got the sense that there was
Yes.
someone.
Now a little while after that, a chap came into the shop who'd written a little book about the village, New Church, Folklore, Fact and Fiction, is the
Right.
book. And he said, Maureen, before we take it to the printers, will you just go through it, see what you think about it? And we're standing at the counter, leafing through the book, and I come to a black and white sketch. Who's this? Because it made me shiver.
Yeah.
Oh, he said, did you not know that's your ghost? He said, there's a young woman walks this property. She's waiting for a lost lover that went to the war and never came back. And the drawing is exactly as I would have pictured her. She's got her head slightly bent, she's got a mob cap on, a shawl round her shoulders. That's coincidence number 1.
Yeah.
At that time, the little cottage next door here, an elderly lady lived there. She was in her 80s and she was a delight.
Yeah.
She'd been in business all her life. She'd been a magistrate. She was a sensible, intelligent, level-headed person. And I used to go and see her in the evening. We used to have lovely conversations. And she died.
Yeah.
And her daughter was clearing the house. And her daughter came in one day and she said, I've cleared this drawer and I've cleared that cupboard out. And Mum's visitor's been. And I said, oh yes, the visitor. She said, yes, you know. And I said, and then she looked at me and she said, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? I said, no, not really. She had lots of visitors. She liked company. Ah, she said, did Mum never tell you about the ghost? She said it was a young woman who used to walk what was from our property into hers. And she knew that she'd been because of the smell. A sickly sweet smell, almost like Palmer violets, was how she described it. And I don't believe in things like that, but there you go.
Well, I mean, how can you explain it?
Yeah.
You can't?
No. But it's just very interesting. And she's around. You feel her presence from time to time, which is quite benign.
That's wonderful.
So that's my story.
Maureen, that's fantastic. And when are you open?
Every day, except for Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Don't come on Christmas Day. But for the rest of the year, we're open all the time, because there are always visitors around, even in the worst of weather.
I can imagine.
I look at people sometimes and I say, "Are you completely mad to come on a day like this?"
I'll bet.
But they love it.
Yeah.
There was a bus full of one afternoon in November. It was about 4 o'clock, so it was dark already. Wet, miserable, cold, and I sort of think, well, I could close now. There's not going to be anybody, and a bus pulled in, and 24 Australian footballers came into the show. And they thought it was wononderful because it was atmospheric.
I can imagine. So you
Right.
get buses, cars,
so
everything.
Yes.
Do you get any? I was going to say, do you get any come on broomsticks?
Just occasionally.
That's wonderful. Maureen, that's fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed.